You are listening to the Final Say radio show, a Rappaport Media production, with your host Brett Rappaport and co-host John Rappaport.
I'm very pleased to welcome our good friend James Carafano, who's the Vice President of Foreign and Defense Policy Studies and Director of the Catherine and Shelby Cullen Davis Institute for International Studies. James, it's a pleasure to have you back on the Final Say radio show.
Hey, it's great to be with you.
Well, James, it's been a very interesting several months with the, changeovers in so many different positions within the administration. And of course, when you look at what's going on with regards to foreign policy, we see another test in North Korea of nuclear weapon. We also see the cooperation of Iranian scientists over in North Korea while this is going on. Of course, the entire world community is trying to deal with the ongoing pursuit of a nuclear program in Iran, and there's so many other issues for that matter. And also we see this sequestration taking effect and the ensuing cuts to defense that we'll be facing. And so the question, James, is, well, where do we start? But in terms of national security, is America where it needs to be today, and what are the most pressing things that we need to address as of now?
No, I mean, look, the reality is, and look, we can't blame Americans for not getting this. We got lives to live. You know, we're going to Walmart. And quite honestly, that's our job. It's Washington's job to really focus on foreign policy, and foreign policy just wasn't an issue in the debate. I mean, we just had kind of bumper stickers like, well, we got bin Laden and blah, blah, blah. But if you look across the world today, it's very, very difficult to argue on any front where U.S. interests are better protected today than they were 4 years ago. That's just a challenge. I put that out to you. Name a part of the world and make the case that we're better off. I'm waiting. Name something. Come on. Antarctica. You're right. There's nothing going on in Antarctica. We are fine there. Okay, next. I mean, it just winds up being a very short conversation. I mean, we got bin Laden. That means nothing. Bin Laden was retired. That's like saying we bomb. That's like we found that guy out in California that was the mafia guy from Boston. That did the Lufthansa heist, and we put him away. Did we make the world safer? No, the guy was retired. So I mean, Al Qaeda is in better shape today than it was 4 years ago. It's resurgent in Iraq. There are more Al Qaeda in Iraq than there were 2 years ago. More people die from violence by Al Qaeda in Iraq today than before. They're well entrenched in Pakistan. Their allies are proliferating throughout Afghanistan. They are running wild across North Africa. And they're in Syria. I mean, so where are we better off?
Well, that's absolutely right. I want to add to what you just said, because the fact that we have so many governments throughout Africa and the Middle East that are in chaos right now, it actually makes it easier for Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda-like groups to take hold, because there's less checks against them. In fact, in often cases, they could seize power of some of these countries.
So, and then what have we just done? What did our Senate just do? We confirmed John Brennan, who is the architect of the Al-Qaeda strategy, which by every reputable measure is failing. They confirmed Chuck Hagel as the Secretary of Defense, even though Hagel has espoused and championed every foreign policy position that Obama has, even though they've all proved to be a failure, and policies like road to nuclear zero, where if we get rid of our nuclear weapons, everybody else will get rid of theirs in the face of North Korea's recent provocation. And John Kerry, who is kind of an interested bystander in foreign policy, and who just went on a tour where not one person in the administration could explain to me what that tour was supposed to accomplish and what he did accomplish, other than looking like he's completely out of touch with the president and completely ineffectual. But trust me, I know I sound kind of like a rabid dog here. I work in a nonpartisan think tank. I understand that the terrorists don't care if the West Wing is run by the left wing or the right wing. I get that. I don't want this president to fail. I'm not making partisan shots here. I'm giving an objective assessment, and I get lots of arguments with my friends on the right and the left, but nobody comes up to me and argues these points and they say, "Oh, Jim, come on, let's be clear here."
Well, but Jim, it's one of the problems that I have with this. You could sum up much of what you watch going on in foreign policy, especially when it comes to things that really, truly can cause death, madness, and mayhem on America. And it's like watching one of these bad Hollywood B movies where even the leftist producers and directors know that everybody in the audience jumps in their own throats when they watch the good guy put down the gun or the nice gal walk into the dark basement. And yet we seem to have a foreign policy that's driven almost by the same director's mentality. And what puzzles me is, I know most people on the street would probably see Heritage as being more conservative, but you guys have such a wealth of information and so much knowledge. And when you look at how naive the decisions are made, it's clear to me that the left side of the aisle is not taking advantage of the incredible amount of information and research that you guys do. If they were, we'd have much better governance.
So I mean, here's the debates I never have. So they go because people that actually go to our website and read our information, that's very different. So I'll get this. I'll go in a debate and somebody will say, well, you want to be the world's policeman. And I go, well, first of all, that's a ridiculously stupid idea. Even if that was true, I mean, there's a couple of billion people in the world. I mean, come on. And you go to the Heritage website, point to me what article that says we want to be the world's policeman. You don't find it. You want to invade everybody. Look, we were against U.S. intervention in Syria. We're against U.S. intervention in Libya. The people that just say, well, you guys are out of touch. When I talk to those people, I go, okay, point to me, and I have these battles on Twitter all the time. Point to me the research on our website, and we literally publish thousands of research documents every year. We're out of touch. And the answer is very simple. It's very easy to caricature people that have uncomfortably answers that just turn out to be true. And it's just much easier to caricature and kind of try to marginalize them. And that's what they've learned from our president. When you don't like your opponents, you just make a caricature of them and then you dismiss them. And I think, honestly, if you go back and look at this recent thing where Rand Paul went to the floor with a filibuster, I mean, I think that was actually, in my mind, really less about the issue of the drones and then the fact that here are a handful of senators who've just gotten so frustrated that the administration has absolutely no respect for their role, their constitutional role as a check and balance and in providing oversight to the administration, that they're just dismissive of them. And I think somehow in the public discourse we've learned that just dismiss your people. So don't go to the Heritage website. Don't read the research. Don't know what people actually think. Don't look at analysis. Just caricature your people and then dismiss them, which works great. That's what they all said about Noah, until it started to rain.
Yeah, that's a great point. With this administration, they've been arguing recently about some lower level judgeships that have been being held up for confirmation. And here we are. We just reading today that the administration says they'll try to release their 2014 budget somewhere around April 8th, which would be approximately 2 months late. And of course, there's a statutory requirement that it's supposed to be released the first Monday in February, which this year would have been February 4th. And it's like they pick and choose which law they want to follow, when they want to follow it, but they always have plenty to say about the other side. And I think you're fair in your assessment, Jim, that you guys are just trying to put out the best information on each policy, and of course, over time, you guys assess things and make changes as they're necessary.
Look, I mean, the president got exactly the economic policies he wanted. Are we better? Is our economy getting better? No. The president has gotten exactly the foreign policies he wanted, and we just gave him the exact foreign policy team that he asked for. So I mean, but then it's always somehow it can be your fault, it can be my fault, it can be our fault, but it's never kind of his fault. If you want to think back to the great presidents in this country, the greatest of the great presidents, they weren't only great leaders, but when they made mistakes and they made missteps, whether it was Eisenhower or Lincoln or even Roosevelt, they stood up to the plate and they said, I screwed up. This guy, we don't get that now, and we're into this massive thing where as long as I can create a narrative that everybody checks the block on that makes it sound like things are okay, it doesn't matter if things really aren't okay. It's quite honestly getting very, very Orwellian, and nowhere more so than on foreign policy. And I'll give you a good example. the press secretary got up today and says, "Oh, we're not worried about an attack from North Korea because we have missile defense." Okay, so footnote 1: the only reason why they have missile defense, it has nothing to do with President Obama. It's because President Bush withdrew the United States from the ABM treaty, because if we hadn't done that, we'd have never had missile defense, and he built that system. The only reason why we're defended at all today is because of President Bush. And the other thing is what they don't tell you is President Obama has slowed that system, he's marginalized that system, and he has limited the effectiveness of that system. So now, they can shoot and we can look. What would be better is to have a system where we shoot, look, and then, if we need to, we shoot again to shoot down the ballistic missile. Now we kind of have a system where it's like we shoot, look, pray.
Well, there's a couple of issues that we've discussed in the past with you on the show, right? We've also made it clear to some of our allies, including those that we already had commitments to provide an anti-missile shield umbrella, like Poland, that they can't even trust us. So not only can't we can't trust our own government to defend ourselves, and neither can they. It's funny when you look at. We often hear, especially when we look at how bad our fiscal house is, we may be the first generation or bringing up the first generation that will not live as well as their parents. And it seems to me there's another area we should be measuring, which is, will the next generation be as safe as their parents? And it feels to me, I know 10, 15 years ago when I was having my kids, and my kids are 15 and 17 now, but when I was having my kids, I honestly felt like I was weary of radical Islam and so forth, but I trusted our leaders would be able to deal with that. But I felt the world that I would be handing my kids a safer world, one where they were less likely to have to serve in a military confrontation. And when I look at the world right now, especially where we are in the last few years, I feel it's the exact opposite. I feel the likelihood is incredibly high, and I worry. I worry for my children, for Brett's children, for your children, for all our kids.
So that brings up a really powerful point, and this is where we're not just making this stuff up. So the missile defense issue, for example, we did a documentary a couple of years ago, and you can go to the website and see the whole documentary on the website. It's called 33 Minutes, which is the time it takes for a ballistic missile to get anywhere in the world to the United States. And if you go to 33minutes.com, you can watch the documentary. What's very interesting is we made the film before the election, before Obama was president. We didn't know who was going to be president, and we didn't know what their missile defense strategy was going to be. But what's very interesting is about the middle of the film, a general comes on and kind of explains, here's the plan for missile defense, right? And this film was done about 2 years before Obama was elected. What's interesting is what he talks about, none of that's been done, because basically Obama froze the program in time. So he outlines the 5 components of missile defense, and basically we're still at where we were when we made the film, which is about kind of at 1.5. And I get a lot of people are very concerned about fiscal issues, as I am. The Heritage Foundation is the font of let's cut out wasteful government spending, let's live within our means, let's balance the budget, let's reduce the deficit, let's not have big government, because all these things are absolutely a drag on our economy. We are the strongest advocates for that in Washington, D.C. And so the people say, well, at least let's cut defense because at least we'll fix the economy. And here's the great fallacy there is. First of all, you can't make defense more efficient by cutting it, because they don't make up the rules. Congress makes up the rules, and Congress drives inefficiencies. So when you give them less money, they just spend less money less efficiently. But the point is every time you cut defense, which we need to protect us, you take the pressure off them to cut the wasteful things. And so where we're going is, and we even see this in the Republican budget. I expect the Ryan budget to be bad on defense. I expect it to be bad on taxes. And I expect it to do, honestly, to do the same kind of smoke and mirror that the president does, is they'll throw up this chart and say we balance in 10 years. And they balance that by accepting Obama's tax hikes, accepting Obamacare, gutting defense, and it's all kind of magic math. I mean, it's not serious stuff. So the reality is by gutting defense and sticking to the fiscal policies we have, we're both going to be poor and less safe. So we are putting, look, it's not even fair to say we're putting the next generation at risk. We're already seeing signs of the military hollowing out. I went and talked to a very senior Pentagon official who told me, look, I can't even meet the guidance the president gave me 2 years ago. And we haven't even seen the biggest impact from sequester and the president's defense cuts.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. Jim, I just want to, before we let you go, I wanted to mention one thing because it reminded me of you. There was a story last week. The SpaceX Dragon was heading up to the International Space Station to bring some cargo, and evidently some solar flare of some sort had interfered with the propulsion system or some panels opening up properly, and they got the problem resolved. But they were discussing the idea that these are, all these space vehicles are hardened to withstand to some degree all the effects of space. And as soon as I heard the word hardening, I thought of James Carafano and how many times I've heard him discussing EMP attacks, and it reminded me of also, your discussions on cybersecurity. But the fact is that we have these problems, we know they exist, and we never deal with them. It's just as the budget issues you've just mentioned, and really
missile defense and EMP are probably the most egregious because they're real serious threats. But because conservatives are leading the charge to deal with them, for some reason Democrats think it's a partisan issue and they have to be against it. One of the biggest EMP threats is from a massive solar flare. So apparently, Democrats are against the sun. They attack people who are critics of climate change and global warming because they say, well, you're just ignoring the science. I mean, here is science which is so unimpeachable. I mean, the National Academy has written about this. I mean, many scientific we had a congressional commission that testified to this. They said, look, someday you're going to get an EMP effect from the sun because it just happens every 100 years or so. It's going to happen. And yet people refuse to deal with it because they go, well, that's just, conservatives with little tin foils on their head. Come on. That's what. Look, I am living in a town full of bobbleheads, and
I agree with that.
I mean, I just don't know what else to tell you.
Jim, we're going to actually be at the Heritage Studios next Tuesday and Wednesday. We're coming down for CPAC. If you have time, we'd love for you to join us again and pick up this conversation. I don't know if you have it in your schedule. But,
I got some time on Tuesday. I'm flying out Tuesday night to do some traveling, but I'll be around Tuesday. I'd love to talk to you guys. You guys have a great show. I am the biggest fan.
Well, we appreciate that, and we're huge fans of yours as well. James Carafano with the Heritage Foundation, and if you go to heritage.org, you could read all about Jim, and you could read all about the studies and the reports and the things that he's been working on. Again, thank you so much.